Everything seems different these days, and I always have a hard time really putting my finger on it. And I try to bloviate and kind of tear apart society sometimes and try to understand why the world seems as it seems today, because there doesn't seem to be much of a purpose to life anymore. And I don't mean that in any kind of depressing way. I don't mean it for me, but I mean for people in general. Like, I remember my childhood, I remember a different time, and I feel like there used to be a kind of a measure of purpose that people had in their lives. Whether on an individual level or as a culture, I feel like there's a direction in which we were moving to a degree, an idea of who we were, of who we are, an idea of the story that brought us to this moment in time. And I know that goes beyond just being an American. I know that's something that goes into every culture. I remember being at some old church in northern England, right by the Scottish border, not too far from Hadrian's Wall. And inside the ruins of that church were these kind of old coffins. And on those coffins it said, "Here lies so-and-so. They served their generation well." And that's something that always stuck with me. You know, an idea of purpose, of cause, of reason for living. And I feel like that's something that I guess had to exist at a certain time, a more poetic, a more romantic time. But I feel like we've lost that time. It doesn't exist. The idea of what it even means to live in a time of purpose just seems strange and incomprehensible to the modern mind, because I think that's what modernity is. Modernity is a mindset of being in a time with no past, a time strictly in the present. And the more I exist in this time, the more many of us all exist in this time, I feel like it's becoming a rejection of the course forward, a course for endless change, a change that's undefined, a change for the sake of change. But there's no poetry to anything anymore. Like I said, there's no higher cause. And maybe you can say that, this is the despiritualization of society would ultimately lead to a life without purpose, because there's no real reason to sacrifice. You can go beyond nation and family and anything like that. I mean, just the spirituality of life doesn't exist anymore. 150 years ago, people believed in magic. People believed in what they couldn't see. And now it's irrational, it's illogical. As much as you want to argue it, the fact is, religion, the idea of God, had such an impact on everyone's lives, 99.9% of humanity, until just recently. And there is a kind of romantic poetry to that. There's life means something. You burn brightly in your youth for more than just yourself. That's one of the great things of being young, is being able to be filled with passion. I think that passion decays as you get older. And especially in today's day, where there's no evidence of reason to be a part of anything more than yourself, that people tend to fall into the path of nihilism. And this is, I think, one of the things that I hate most about kind of the idea of the new humans in modernity, is that it's completely detached from its history. And I believe if you're detached from your history in a great way, you're detached from your humanity. Life is a beautiful thing. It's an amazing thing. From the beginning to the end, it's filled with triumphs and hardships and victories and love and hate and violence and dread and beauty and creation. And there's just an endless mosaic of emotional expression that happens organically throughout your life. But somehow we've lost that. Somehow that's no longer a fixture of the human experience. We seek it out through media because it doesn't happen organically in our lives anymore. That poetic age of human adventure is gone. It's been systematically erased as humanity, and our experience has been collapsed and its parameters have been pulled in, because the fact is that we all need to live a life within these slim, acceptable margins that society has put on us. And this society isn't a society which requires people to have purpose in their lives more than just working and producing. I mean, just look at the state of modern art today. Compare it to classical art. Compare architecture from 100, 200 years ago and before to today. Has it really gotten better? No. no one would argue that the buildings that are going up today, that the artwork that's being put out today, is anywhere near the quality and creative expression from generations ago. It just isn't. This place, this world has lost its soul, because it's only from the soul can this kind of expression be found. And I think that's one of the greatest tragedies of living in this modern age. Life has no purpose, no real purpose anymore. And even if you find your own purpose, we can look at people who find some kind of spirituality, and it can blossom something beautiful in them. But other people will just see that as, this person's crazy. They must have been going through a hard time. They must have been doing drugs and came out of it and, found themselves and found a higher power. But I say that it's completely foolish to just discount those kind of things. To cast out the impact of religion on society. We've been taught that the effects of any kind of spirituality, anything outside of ourselves, outside of the tangible, logical edge of reason, isn't worth any time at all. But I would argue that kind of the greatest and worst parts of humanity come from those extensions of ourselves. And the sad part is, as society and as we become more individualistic and more emotionally gray, these exciting times are over. What do we live for? What purpose do we have on your day-to-day basis? Any kind of creative expression usually comes from some kind of creation through some kind of productive effort that only goes to attain an income. And that's because we've been forced into a place once again where we live in a dilemma that if we don't produce, we don't survive. At some point that happened. At some point we lost ourselves as humans, I think, because I don't think that that's a part of us anymore. And we feel it. We feel like there's something missing in our lives. No one is fulfilled with the way that this world works. I've never met anybody who's genuinely happy with the state of things as they are now. No one. The only thing that matters, the only purpose that people seem to have now is some kind of mad scramble for power, whether that be in their lives or for their political sides. That's the only thing that matters now. Politics has seeped into every aspect of life, and humanity is poor for it. And the worst part is that one of the things that cause and inspires humans to change and inspires humans to actually take action is through that kind of poetry that we lost. Every now and then we find ourselves being inspired. And this is why I say, I like to look back into the past because I remember being inspired. I remember what it felt like to have myself filled with purpose. And it's a beautiful thing, and it's an amazing thing. And that's why I say, if you're younger, take full advantage of the heart that you have. When I used to compete in wrestling, I wrestled at West Virginia University when I was younger as a heavyweight. And I did quite well. Not so much when I actually went to Division I school. I got to wrestle some, but besides that, there's a poetry to the violence, right? There's a beauty to the dance of the combative arts. And to this day, I still really appreciate them. And I think to anybody who actually knows those kind of sports, anybody who watches two men really in the flower of their youth, at the height of their physical potential, in a pure contest of domination over each other, it is actually a very beautiful and romantic thing that escapes many people today. And I think this is one of the reasons why martial arts have existed for so long, and they've been appreciated. And the idea of warrior poets has really lasted through the eons to where we are today, because there's a call from somewhere deep inside us to kind of explore those things, an appreciation for that kind of mastery of the self. And a lot of people will just throw it off and be like, oh, this is just machismo. This is just a big expression of masculinity. I think it's something much more than that. I always find beauty in the highest levels of boxing, the highest levels of fighting, because I know what goes into them. It's an amazing amount of discipline. And to see discipline to that degree executed can be a truly beautiful thing if you look at it for what it is. It is artwork. But I think that we've just lost our appreciation for that. And I think a part of that is because we just can't relate anymore. We don't live physical lives. I think it was Marcus Aurelius who said, like, one of the saddest things a man can do in his life is not see himself at his physical peak. And it's true. And, as someone who used to be a very good athlete, as someone who used to be a Marine, and see, as I get older, to see my body and my physical health and attributes decline organically, I have a great reverence and appreciation for kind of, that part of not just my life, but other people's lives, where they're in that position, where they're really executing life at their peak. And it's something to appreciate. And maybe that is because our country focuses so much on the elderly now. We are a country ran by the elderly, people who are in the advanced stages of life. All the efforts in our system seem to be focused on preserving their happiness and forgetting about the youth. Forgetting about those who can actually create change, those who fight the wars, those who are inspired the most, those who are the most creative. It ignores them. They cast them as kind of unworthy to any kind of power. But I think that we have to remember that throughout history, throughout the entirety of history, that most leaders were in their 30s, were in their 40s, maybe in their 50s. Because leadership should be more than just a bureaucrat getting up and speaking civilly. People yearn to be inspired in a way that these people just can't, because they've never experienced that kind of physical side to life. I mean, they've spent their entire youth either in school or in an office. What do they actually know about true humanity? What do they actually know about getting out there and just living? How can somebody who's never actually experienced life in any kind of way beyond a kind of a bureaucratic role actually guide humanity? And I think that that's probably one of the reasons why everything seems so gray and dull today, is because people with a very gray life, people who've lived a very meaningless life of just chasing, one promotion after another in a very sterile corporate or government environment, have created a world that reflects their experience. Because it's pretty obvious that that's not where the pinnacles of human expression come from. They don't come from that. We can talk about the poor, we can talk about classes and everything all day, but when we're just talking about something as regular as human expression, I mean, where does it always come from? It always comes from the poorest populations of a community, of a culture, of a society. That's where it comes from. People who've dedicated their entire lives to the mastery of skill. That's something that we've lost an appreciation for, because we don't have it in our society anymore. The transient nature of careers now don't allow and don't attend to that kind of movement through society, through that kind of appreciation of a way of things. So that's just it. I think there isn't purpose to life here anymore. Not in the States. No, there is no purpose to life in the United States anymore. There's no purpose to life in most places I've been to now. We've all simply just become variables in an equation of profit and control. And I think it's truly sad. And I think the saddest thing for me is that maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that kind of poetic age, this age of heroism, this age of beauty, perhaps this just never actually existed. Maybe it's just a simulacra of a time that I will never know, that I never knew. But I hope did exist, because the idea of that gives me hope that we can move in a direction where human expression can kind of go again, and kind of with the expectations that we have of what a society and what a people should be, we can actually reach that again. Because I don't think that we should all just be bots going to a job. I don't think that we should all just be combatants in a mad scramble for political power. I think it goes way beyond that. And as someone who really does love to see the beauty in life and the beauty in people, the thought of it is both beautiful and sad. Because I think that a lot of us still have that poetry in us. It's still there. And we shouldn't let it go. When we see things that inspire us, we understand why it's inspiring us. And these are things that we should emulate. People and events that, cause us to kind of vibrate, I guess you'd say, on that kind of higher level. These are things that we should chase. These are things that we should follow, because organically we know that this is just a truth to us. And it isn't something that should simply be disregarded or, treated as something that's just masculine or something that's just feminine. It should be something that it should be something that's pursued. It's something that should be honed and understood kind of inside of all of us. Because like I said, I think it's one of the most beautiful parts of being alive. And I think that it's been taken from us. But because it's something that comes from inside of us and comes from our communities and who we are, it's not something that can ever be truly snuffed out. So I'd say for this weekend, the weather's changing, the seasons are changing, warmer days are here. And I think that maybe it's time for a mental and emotional change, a bit of a personal paradigm shift, where we kind of chase these more romantic, poetic sides of us and actually feel the kind of human expression that's actually gratifying to us, either for our experience or for those around us, to be those better people. Like I said, it all circles back around to the same thing, which is lead with empathy and understand that we're all in this together. And that this life is truly a beautiful thing. And, as much as we dogpile and hate on America, which is justified for the large part, there's still a lot of beauty here. And I think that is mostly in the people. Because as much as we can hate on America, and as much as kind of the controlled culture and media that gets slipped out to the rest of the world, there's a lot of beautiful expression here. There's a lot of people doing great things. There's a lot of people doing great works. And maybe it takes a purposeful choice in our life to kind of look for these things and to respect and admire these things and kind of invite them into our lives more. But I don't know what you think. I know this is a bit of a departure from the tone and the content that things have been, but I feel like a bit of a shift lately because I'm not a doom and gloom guy, and I work with so many people on a daily basis, and my goal is to help them out. And I love the fact that I can see change in these people's lives, and doing that is very rewarding. Helping people out is very rewarding. And if you can find a job or career where you get paid to help people out, do that, because if it feels right, then it probably is right. But yeah, I'm allowing these higher things in me, and as we're moving kind of closer to Easter, it's making me reflect a little bit more. And I'm only a few weeks away from my little boy being here, and family's going to be showing up. It's going to be a little bit crazy, but we appreciate you. We appreciate your support and everything that you do for us. We love the comments. You guys have helped out so much with us getting ready here at the house, whether it's just from the well wishes or from the actual donations that many of you have given us. It's had a very big impact on our lives. And to be fair, all of it's gone into buying stuff for the baby, because that's where all of our money is going right now. So, we appreciate you guys, and thanks for stopping by, and take care.